now this is the lady I've been waiting on. I've been waiting to hear what she has to say about all this. They are speaking out and they're saying Jaguar Wright has something to say about Malcolm. I knew she was going to say something. So I can't wait to see what this video is going to say and what we're going to discover about who was really after Malcolm Jamal Warner, because make no mistake about it, that was a hit, you know. And they're telling me how the mom is speaking out like she has been scripted, like she's a puppet of the puppet master. I won't be surprised considering she's been in Hollywood behind the scenes since Malcolm was a child. So I'm sure she's probably has compromised herself so many ways. You understand? Because I'm sure she sees a lot too. I mean, everybody around Malcolm, from his wife to the mom to the child, it's all a mystery. So let's hear what Jag has to say about this allegedly. I cannot confirm everything that's said in this video is true, but this is going viral and this is what people are talking about and this is what people are seeing. So I don't want you to miss out on what's been talked about and what's the word is on the street. You guys got to know. All right, so let's watch, share, and subscribe. Check this out, y'all.
Y'all, Miss Jaguar Wright has officially entered the chat on the bone-chilling death of Malcolm Jamal Warner. And if what she's saying is even half true, this isn't just a tragedy. It could be a cover-up. According to Jaguar, Malcolm wasn't just spiraling before he passed. He was running, literally sprinting from something or someone. And now after weeks of whispers, the U.S. authorities are finally stepping in. The police have reportedly launched a formal investigation into the circumstances surrounding Malcolm's final days. And y'all, what they're uncovering is starting to line up with everything that Jaguar warned us about. Why was Malcolm so paranoid and what was he scared of and how deep does this really go? Because if Jaguar Wright is correct, this wasn't just random. This wasn't sudden. This was a warning. We all missed it. Let's get into it. Okay, so Jaguar Wright is now saying that Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't just jet off to Costa Rica for a peaceful getaway like the headlines want us to believe. According to her, Malcolm Jamal Warner wasn't on vacation, he was on the run. She claims he knew someone was coming for him and he was so scared for his life, like genuinely afraid something bad was about to happen. And here's where things started to feel real suspicious. There's this creepy video of Malcolm just hours before he died, walking alone on a dark beach. At first glance, it looked normal, but then when you really watch it, he doesn't look calm. He doesn't look relaxed. It looks off. He looks like something was weighing heavy on him, and his energy was tense like he was watching his back, and people are now saying it felt like he knew something we didn't.
Now we finally have an update on the drowning death of Malcolm Jamal Warner. Now, according to ABC7, they stated that Malcolm Jamal Warner had drowned while he was on vacation in Costa Rica. Now, the article goes on to say that Warner had drowned off the coast of Costa Rica on Sunday. So this actually occurred on Sunday. They stated that the Costa Rican National Police had told this to ABC News.
So now the question is, who was he running from? And why hasn't this been all over the news? Because if Jaguar's telling the truth, and let's be honest, she's been right before, then this wasn't just a tragic accident. Something was going on behind the scenes. And Malcolm might have been trying to send us a message before it was too late. But according to Jaguar, the reason Malcolm looked so shaken in that video was because he had allegedly just gotten threatened again. This time by some extremely powerful people he was planning to expose. She says the moment on that beach wasn't just some random late night walk. It was right after he got hit with another warning. And that's why he looked so tense, like he was wrestling with something. But here's the wild part. When that video first dropped, people already had questions. It just didn't sit right. It didn't look like himself. But some folks even started speculating that maybe he was under the influence of something, like hinting at drugs or some other substance, just trying to make sense of why he seemed so off. But here's where everything takes a sharp turn. When the autopsy results came back, they showed that there were no substances in Malcolm's system at all. So all those speculations about him possibly being high were wrong. But once you take that off the table, it forces you to look at the beach video with fresher eyes, because if Malcolm was completely sober, then what had him looking so anxious? Now, Jaguar Wright's claims hit way harder, and if he really was getting threatened by powerful people, and if he knew he was in danger, then that video wasn't random. It could have been the moment he realized just how serious things had gotten, and honestly, that kind of changes things. And according to Jaguar, the story about him drowning doesn't really add up, because allegedly, that's not how it went went down. Y'all, his body was found in the water, but Jaguar says Malcom was already gone long before he even hit the ocean, which could explain why he didn't even try to fight the current or escape the riptide. And that part has fans seriously questioning the official narrative, because let's not forget, Malcom was an experienced swimmer. He knew exactly how to handle a riptide, and this wasn't just some random tourist who panicked in the water, and if he didn't fight it, maybe it's because he couldn't. Or worse, maybe he never had the chance. So who exactly was Malcom running from? Why were they after him? And the real question is, how did they manage to make it all disappear like nothing ever happened? Well, according to Jaguar, Malcom became a target the moment he stopped playing the game. She claims he refused to shrink himself just to make Hollywood comfortable. And if you know anything about how this industry moves, then that's where things can get dangerous. Well, Jaguar says Malcom wasn't willing to be the quiet, compliant, safe version of a black man that Hollywood likes to keep around. He was vocal, he was calling out hypocrisy, and apparently he was planning to expose some things that could have ratted a lot of cages. And if you've been paying attention, you already know that there's been a long-standing talk about Hollywood trying to silence, feminize, or completely break down outspoken black men. And when they stop cooperating, or worse, start speaking out, that's when the real trouble starts. I mean, y'all remember what happened with Dave Chappelle back in 2005, right? When he allegedly dipped and flew out to Africa after walking away from that $50 million Comedy Central deal? The media went into overdrive. Tabloids were painting him as unstable, pushing wild theories that he was on drugs or having some type of mental breakdown. But when Dave came back and sat down with Oprah, he cleared it up. He said it wasn't about the money, it was about the conditions attached to it, the pressure, the control, the way they tried to box him in. He made it clear he wasn't willing to sell out to let the industry turn him into something he wasn't.
Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
Well, I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances that were coming with the newfound plateau.
Yeah.
It takes a while when you punch through to adjust to the atmosphere.
Dave said one of the main reasons he turned down that Comedy Central deal was that he started noticing a pattern and didn't sit right with him. He talks about how entertainers go through something dark right before they reach that next level of fame, and he made it clear that the same machine that lifts you up will tear you apart the second you stop playing along. So instead of letting them reshape him, he dipped. He chose peace over power.
I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happens, and I've seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
Okay. When you say you've heard the stories, what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through and he's waving a gun on the street screaming, "They're trying to kill me."
Yeah. Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time in their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah.
When Oprah asked Dave to clarify what exactly made him walk away, he didn't hold back. He said he was being pushed to create sketches that felt socially irresponsible, like they were laughing at him, not with him. But it wasn't just that. They weren't harmless jokes. He could feel that the goal was to make people laugh at black men, not with them. And once he realized that, he couldn't ignore it. Well, Dave said it felt like he was being used to humiliate his own people for the sake of a punchline, and that was his breaking point. And if we bring that back to Malcom's situation, the parallels are starting to feel way too real.
Sounds like somebody's trying to put young Dave in a compromising position. Oprah?
Dave nearly lost everything for speaking up. His career was basically on life support for years after that, but somehow he pulled through and made a comeback. Malcom, though, according to Jaguar, he wasn't as lucky, because she says he was going down that same path, except this time he was calling out some seriously dangerous stuff. Take the Drake and Kendrick beef, for example. While the whole hip-hop scene was choosing sides, Malcom stepped back and called it what it was. He didn't play into the drama. Instead, he pointed out how there were powerful people behind the scenes trying to tear down two of the most influential black men in the game. And according to Jaguar, those people didn't like that one bit. Malcom wasn't just ruffling feathers, he was exposing something that didn't want the world to see. And that might have been the moment he became a real threat. But according to Jaguar, that made everything feel even more suspicious where Malcolm's final podcast interviews, because once again, he wasn't holding back. He flat out called out the powerful people behind the scenes, the ones he said were treating black men like puppets and pulling strings for their own gain. In one of those clips, Malcom broke down how the media constantly strips black men of their humanity. He talked about how they're boxed in, labeled, and pushed to the edge for just existing. But what really caught people off guard was when he hinted that he was about to expose everything. No vague metaphors, he was speaking with urgency, like a man who knew the clock was ticking. And now looking back, a lot of folks are wondering if that was his warning, if he knew he had pissed off the wrong people and this time was almost up. This is what he said.
Black community is not a monolith. There's so many levels and lanes to the black community, and we wanted to have a space where we could acknowledge, discuss all of those lanes, because they're so varied in terms of our perspectives and our opinions and our ways of life, and we wanted to be able to have a place where we can talk about all of those things, discuss all of those things, and shed light on the not all hood aspects of who we are.
Now, as wild as Jaguar's claims sound, a lot of fans are starting to feel the exact same way, because when you really sit down and think about everything, there's just too much that doesn't add up. The timeline's messy, the details keep shifting, and for a case that was supposed to be straightforward, it starts to fall apart the moment you look at it more than 5 seconds. For example, at first, officials claimed that Malcom got pulled into the riptide while trying to save his daughter. A spokesperson from the Judicial Investigation Agency said, "It appears that at one point Mr. Warner was playing with his daughter at the shoreline. He later left her out of the water and supposedly entered the sea along with a friend. It was at that moment that the current pulled them in. The friend managed to get out, but unfortunately Warner did not." But that version of the story started raising red flags fast. The chief of the tourist police of the Atlantic region came out with a completely different story. He claimed that Malcolm's family, including his daughter, weren't even at the beach when the drowning happened. According to him, they interviewed Malcolm's family, but they also weren't there at the time of the accident. So now we've got 2 conflicting reports from official sources and no clear way to tell which one's actually the truth. What's even weirder is that Judicial Investigation Agency is doubling down on their original story. According to the Daily Mail, when they reach out for clarification, the agency didn't backtrack. Instead, they reissued their previous statement that Warner's daughter was on the shoreline. There are claims that one surfer dived in to help and use his board to bring Warner's daughter to safety, and volunteer lifeguard pulled Warner and another surfer to shore. It's like every single person who claims they were there has a completely different version of what happened, and at some point you really have to ask, who's actually telling the truth? Or is anybody even telling the truth at all? Well, according to Jaguar Wright, even the U.S. government isn't fully buying the official story, and that's why they're allegedly launching their own investigation into Malcolm's death. Now keep in mind, this is all happening outside the U.S. and technically out of their jurisdiction, but Malcolm was still a U.S. citizen, and if there's even a whip for foul play, you already know folks don't want to play with Uncle Sam. Plus, this wouldn't be the first time the U.S. government stepped in after a suspicious death overseas. Y'all remember that heartbreaking case of Shanquella Robinson back in 2022? She tragically lost her life while on a trip in Cabo, Mexico. And even though the Mexican authorities had already launched their own investigation, the U.S. still stepped in and conducted a separate one because of the circumstances were just too shady to ignore. So if history is anything to go by, Malcolm's case might be getting a lot of more attention behind the scenes than we've been led to believe. And according to Jaguar, that's exactly what's about to happen. She claims the feds are already digging into what really went down with Malcom, and if that's true, Hollywood might be in for a serious shakeup. Because if investigators trace this back to the people who were allegedly threatening him, and if it turns out his death wasn't just some tragic accident, y'all, the entire industry could be forced to answer for a whole lot of things that they've been sweeping under the rug. So if Jaguar's right and the feds are really stepping in, then this might be bigger than anybody thought. Malcolm Jamal Warner wasn't just trying to escape the spotlight, he might have been trying to stay alive. And now with the US government reportedly launching its own investigation, we're not just talking about a tragic death anymore. We're talking about powerful people possibly getting exposed, secrets unraveling, and a story that could send serious shockwaves through Hollywood. Because if the truth actually sees the light of day,